The day is 22nd of October of 1899 in Swiss national Hans Max Gamper-Hassing, better known as Jan Gamper, who founded FC Surge in 1896, 3 years prior, put out an advertisement in Los Deportes, a newspaper in Barcelona. This is what that advertisement said. Nuestro amigo y compañero Mr. Hans Gamper, de la sección de fútbol de Sociedad de los Deportes y antiguo campeón suizo, deseoso de poder organizar algunos partidos en Barcelona, ruega a cuantos sientan aficionados por el referido deporte se sirvan ponerse en relación con él, dignándose al efecto pasar por esta redacción los martes y viernes por la noche de 9 a 11. This was the call to arms from John Gamper. The response will be a gathering of young men in Gimnasio Solé on October 29 of that same year. The men that attended this gathering were Walter Wild, the first president of the club, Luis de Oso, Bartolomeo Terradas, Otto Kunzle, Otto Mayer, Enric Ducal, Pere Cabot, Carles Pujol, Josep Jovet, John Parsons, and William Parsons. And together, these men formed what we know today as Football Club Barcelona. Más que un club, not just a motto, but a phrase that resembles Catalan resistance and identity, political and social significance, nationalism versus centralism, Barcelona versus Real Madrid, a team that has never been relegated since the beginning of La Liga in 1929, alongside Real Madrid and Atletico Bilbao. A lot more. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome to History Football Club. My name is Cristian Putalias, and I hope you guys enjoy this. Thank you for coming along on this history ride. As mentioned in the beginning of this podcast episode, we are going to be talking about FC Barcelona, the beginnings of it, everything that has to do with the club, with the team, the history, the beginnings, the humble beginnings, and to what it is today in 2025, the time that we are recording this episode. So let's get to it. Let's get to the beginning of things. Let's get to where the club originated, where it came from, how everything came to be. And everything started with a Swiss national, Hans Max Gamper-Hassing, better known as John Gamper, a Swiss national who founded the club FC Surge in 1896. He also founded FC Barcelona in 1899. Like we said, as we mentioned in the beginning of this episode, he did place an advertisement in Los Deportes declaring his wish to form a football club. And he had a positive result. A lot of people came and met up at Gimnasio Solé on November 29, only about a month later. As you heard in the beginning, also, there was 11 players that attended. Walter Wild, who later on happened to be the first president of the club, Luis de Oso, Bartolomeo Terradas, Otto Kunzle, Otto Mayer, Enric Ducal, Pere Cabot, Carles Pujol, Josep Jovet, John Parsons, and William Parsons as well. And these were the beginnings of the club that we know today. The beginning was a bit of a struggle. Even though they had won local and regional championships, it was kind of, a slow turning wheel. Copa Macaya was the first piece of silverware in 1901, which was a regional tournament in Catalonia. So just to kind of get into context of things, right? When you look at a map of Spain, Catalonia is in the northeastern region of Spain, basically bordering with what we know today as Andorra in France. That's basically what we have today over there in that region. So this regional tournament, Copa Macaya, was played between 1900 and 1903, and it was a slow tournament. Basically, it just kind of had teams from that area, from Catalonia, from southern France, and just kind of stuff, teams that just gather from there, right? In 1908, John Gamper, the founder of the club, came back to Barcelona because the club wasn't looking too good financially or socially. And on the football side of things, it hadn't won a trophy since 1905. So he decided to come back and kind of give it a little bit of life. On the footballing side of things, they haven't won a trophy since 1905. So he came back to kind of give this club life. This is what he said, quote, "Barcelona cannot die and must not die. If there's nobody who is going to try, then I will assume the responsibility of running the club from now on." Gamper was going to actually be the president of Barcelona for 25 years and 5 different occasions in this beginning. And one of his main achievements was ensuring that Barcelona acquired its own stadium and therefore kind of generating a stable income coming in through, tickets and just concessions and stuff like that. In 1909, the team founded a home in Camp de la Industria. It was a small, relatively small place that held 6,000 people. So I guess, it's, to some people that's a lot, to some people that's not a lot. When you look at, stadiums today, which hold some of them 80,000, 60,000 people, 6,000 is a little bit, but in 1909, 6,000 was a good amount of people. That same year, the club conducted a logo contest, and one of the players, Carles Comala Lopez del Pan, to be more specific, he was the one that won this competition, and he designed the crest as we know it today. Obviously, there has been some minor changes to it, but until the day of today in 2025, more than 100 years later, the logo still resembles a lot what Carles Comala had brought in and presented in this contest. The stadium helped grow tremendously the club in the 1910s and becoming a dominant team in the region. They won 3 Campeonats de Catalunya, 3 Copa del Rey in 4 years, and 4 Pyrenees Cups, which was one of the earliest international club cups in Europe. For example, just to kind of give you a little background of what the Pyrenees Cup was, it included teams from Catalonia, the Basque Country, which is also a region next to Catalonia, Languedoc, Midi-Pyrenees, and Aquitaine, which was a region between northeastern Spain and southwestern France. So this is also kind of like Copa Macasa, which only included teams in, maybe closer to Catalonia. This one included surrounding, as we know them today, maybe in the United States or maybe where you live, different provinces or different counties and stuff like that. At this time, the club would change its official language from Castilian, which is the Spanish that we know today in a sense, to Catalan, which is a derivative of the Spanish, but obviously has its own flair to the region. This right here is a huge pivotal moment in the club. It was the first political movement or stance by the club. So the beginning of the beginning of Barcelona Football Club being more than a club, this is going to be it. And it all started with an official language change. By 1922, Gamper launched a campaign to recruit more members, and the club had more than 20,000 members who helped finance a new stadium. The club will move on to its new stadium, Les Cortes, which would hold a capacity of 30,000 people, which is insane. And then in 20 years, in the 1940s, it would be expanded to hold 60,000 people. Funny enough, going and bringing stuff, to the day of today, the Camp Nou, which is the home today, is being renovated to actually hold about 100,000 people. So imagine the insanity of people that went from a stadium of 6,000 people to a stadium that is going to hold in the near future 100,000 members, or just people that are going to go into Camp Nou and enjoy Barcelona games. Late teens and early 20s will be great for Barcelona. They were winning more Campeonats de Catalunya. They won 9 out of 10 from 1919 to 1928. 2 more Copa del Rey's in 1920s and 1922. When you hear the name Primo de Rivera, What do you think about? I'll be honest, when I first heard this name, I was like, I have no idea who this not even a player, who this person is in history. This was not a player. This was nobody related to soccer, related to anything that had to do with a soccer ball or a football club. We're talking about a person that made changes and just changed the course of history in Spain. We're talking about Miguel Primo de Rivera y Urbanaje, second Marquis of Estella. Talk about a name. That is a truly, truly crazy, long, well put together name. Born in a land-owning family of aristocrats, that's a hard word for me, in Andalusia, southern region of Spain, he was a military man who climbed the ranks and just became a powerful man. He became the administrator of Valencia, which is a region of Madrid, and then ultimately also Barcelona and military regions. In September 13, 1923, with the backing of King Alfonso XIII, who was the king of Spain at the time, as we know, a lot of countries in Europe have a king, which kind of shows as the monarchy, the great past that these countries had. And we have, prime ministers who act as the actual political side of things, right? So at this time, we had King Alfonso XIII, and this man, Miguel Primo de Rivera y Urbanaje, better known as Primo de Rivera, cousin of Rivera, which is funny when you put it like that, he led a military coup and took over the power of Spain, and he was backed by the king at the time. So everything just kind of went well for him. And he was named the prime minister by the king. He said that he was only going to take power for 90 days. But guess what? He stayed in power from September 15, 1923 until January 28 of 1930. The man said, you know what, 90 days for now, but he ended up staying for 7 years. A lot of people supported him. They liked the fact that he brought some type of order to Spain. I guess at the time in the 1920s, it wasn't a great time to maybe be in Spain or live in Spain. There wasn't a lot of order politically, and a lot of people in the beginning supported Primo de Rivera. But like everything, it came with a price. His regime was more of a dictatorship. He censored the press. He went full force with anything that opposed his power and anything that resembled Primo de Rivera and the dictatorship that he was trying to impose into the Spanish people. Barcelona, or as a lot of people kind of name it as a region, Catalonia, they always dreamt of having their own state. Even till the day of today, they still think themselves as a different type of people, and they want their own state. So in order to suppress the separatist movement, the regime tried to kill anything that pertained to the Catalan culture. Church services in Catalan were illegal. Now they had to be in Castilian or Spanish. And even they went all the way to the point of making dances like sardana, which is like a typical dance of Catalonia, making that illegal. So if you were dancing sardana, if you were speaking Catalan, if you had flags of Catalan, anything related to the region of Catalan or Catalonia was illegal, and you would be thrown into jail. But something crazy happened. Something wild happened that you don't see happening a lot, or maybe you actually do see it happen a lot. But this was a key point in the history of Barcelona as a club, getting into also the political stuff. As a few years behind, they had changed their language from Castilian to Catalan. In June 14, 1925, the crowd jeered the Royal March, which is the national anthem of Spain. As we said, this, even though it is the national anthem of Spain, this was seen as a direct opposition or direct threat or provocation against Primo Rivera and his whole regime. So what did Primo de Rivera do? He actually closed the stadium for 6 months. And John Gamper, the owner, the president at the time, not the owner, the founder and the president at the time, he was forced to turn his presidency over to to somebody else, basically, because he wasn't able to kind of continue on keeping this club alive, especially, 6 months of no revenue, nothing there. But the people were making their voices heard against Primo de Rivera in Spain, or at least in the Catalonia region. Unfortunately for everybody in history as a whole, on July 30th, 1930, Gamper, after a period of depression due to personal and financial problems, not only, as we said, personal and his personal life, but also dealing with the club and everything that was going on there, he decided to put an end to his life. And it's unfortunate, but things like that happen when just depression, and just personal things just come at you. So John Gamper, rest in peace. Great man, obviously founded 2 clubs that are still going around today, and unfortunately his life ended too short in 1930. 1929, Barcelona actually won the inaugural Spanish league, which there was only 10 teams. The 10 teams were Arenas, Atlético Bilbao, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Real Sociedad, Real Unión, and then we also had Athletic Madrid, Espanyol, and Europa. The 10th actually would be a winner of a tournament. Racing de Santander beat Sevilla, and those were the teams that composed the inaugural league, or what we know today as La Liga, in 1929. Only 10 teams. The record was a really good record for Barcelona. 28 games, 11 wins, 3 draws, 4 losses, 37 goals in favor, 23 against, 25 points. Honestly, a well-rounded campaign for Barcelona in the 1920s. So, shout out to them for winning the inaugural Spanish league. As we jump into the 1930s, even winning more campeonats de Catalunya throughout the 30s, Barcelona wasn't able to win a national title in this time. They only won the Mediterranean League, which is another league that it also had different clubs from different countries, in 1937. But unfortunately, the 1930s was a rough decade, not only for Barcelona and Catalonia, but the whole country as a whole. And this is what we're going to talk about next. So let's talk about the war. And you're probably thinking to yourself, what war? Which war do you want to talk about? There's so many wars in this world, unfortunately, that, at this point in time, we're putting names to them, we're putting numbers to them. But in the 1930s, it was the biggest thing that happened to the Spanish country, at least in the modern era, and it was the Spanish Civil War. It was a war that was fought between Republicans, who were the loyal to the left-leaning Popular Front, also known as the Second Spanish Republic, against the Nationalists, an alliance of monarchists, conservatives, traditionalists, and Fangalists, who were a political party that was closely associated with fascism. So when you think of that, think about Mussolini, think about Hitler, think about those type of people in that era that were starting to get power. Obviously, it led to World War II in the 1940s. The nationalist movement, which included all these people, were led by a man named Francisco Franco. And this war was fought between 1936 and 1939. So only 3 years, but these were 3 years of chaos. An estimated 500,000 deaths were counted or accounted for, which was a mix of combat-related deaths, civilians, malnutrition, disease, poor conditions of living that just devastated the region, devastated the country of Spain, devastated the people as a whole in the Iberian Peninsula for a long time, honestly, for a long, long time. And I don't know if you guys know, but Pablo Picasso was alive during this era, and he actually but he composed a beautiful painting in the 1930s that we know today as La Guernica or Guernica. And it's a giant painting, 11 feet by 15 feet, and it was a depiction of terrible moments of the Basque town of Guernica during the war. So Guernica, obviously, being a city in the Basque country, which is a region next to Catalonia. And this was seen from Pablo Picasso not only by the painter himself, but as a people, basically as a Very, very powerful anti-war painting that just talked about, the bad things that were happening to people. A lot of civilian casualties, a lot of air raids by Mussolini against the people of Spain. Hitler also having his people going into Spain. And not only that, but obviously the people under Franco were bombing their own people. Obviously, it was a civil war, right? So it's people against people, brother against brother, cousin against cousin, and family against family. Unfortunately, that's what civil wars are. And unfortunately, Spain had to live through that and had to go through that. At the beginning of the war, both Barcelona and Atletico Bilbao players joined the ranks against the military-backed nationalists. And on August 6th of that year, 1936, the president of the club of Barcelona, who at that time was Josep Sunyol, was murdered by the Fangelists. So, as we said, the Fangelists was a group that was very close connected to Franco. And this was a huge point in the history of the club, because not only, they're attacking the people of Barcelona, but this was a direct person that was in charge of the club. So Sunyol, basically at this point in time in the 1936, at the moment of his death, he represented martyrdom for the Barcelonismo. He represented the ideal man dying for his country, dying for his region, dying for Catalonia. And this became the most important moment in the history of FC Barcelona and being identified as a Catalan. Probably this is the peak identity of the club. This is the point where people are going to, look back and say, Sunyol died for us. Sunyol died as a Catalan. He died with the colors. He died for our flag. And this is who we are going to make a martyr for us. In 1937, there was a tour that happened from Barcelona. They went to Mexico. They went to the United States in the summer of 1937. And they were received as ambassadors of the Second Spanish Republic. And if you guys remember, these were the people that were literally fighting against Franco. And the team was received as ambassadors of this type of people. So imagine how identified Barcelona was with the people going against Franco, that when they traveled to other countries like Mexico, United States, France, they were received as ambassadors of this people. They represented the people that were fighting against the dictatorship of Franco, everything that belonged to Franco, everything that Franco represented. Barcelona represented the complete opposite. And this tour was great on one side of things, because obviously they made a lot of money. Financial security came to Barcelona as a club. They were able to get this money to be able to raise. Tours are usually great because you obviously make money, right? That's what tours are. But on the other side, it was a bad one, because a lot of the team, a lot of the players, looking for better lives, looking to get out of this war, looking to find somewhere with peace with their families, or just trying to grow their careers, or soccer players, stayed in Mexico and France seeking asylum. So a double-edged sword, this tour of the summer of 1937, which it was crazy to me when I heard this, because in here now in 2025 we have the Club World Cup in the United States. You see all these teams coming from different countries, and you start thinking about, oh my God, like this is a new thing, right? You see all these European teams coming to the United States during the summer, during their off season, and doing tours, but they've been doing this since the 1930s, and it's something that I found very, very interesting. So as we go on, 1938 was a tough time for Catalonia as a region and Barcelona as a football team. It was crazy. It was crazy. Also, during that time, the Italian Air Force, commanded by Mussolini, bombed Barcelona, killing thousands. And a few months later, Catalonia came under the occupation of Franco regime, and the club dwindled to about 3,000 to 500 members. You have to remember, they were a club that at one point there were 20,000 deep in members, and now in the 1930s, late 1930s, they went down to 3,500 members. And for different reasons. A lot of people were escaping this. A lot of people were dying. A lot of people were fighting. And the club just was trying to stay alive, right? And they were trying to represent these people in the way that they played, and the way that they moved, and the way that they raised their flag. They faced many restrictions, and they were forced to remove things that were considered signs of separatism. You couldn't speak Catalan in the streets. You couldn't speak Catalan in the churches like it happened before with Primo de Rivera. The flags, as we see today, the red and the yellow, which is like a symbol for Catalan identity, those were banned. The Catalan flag as a whole was banned, and the club wasn't even allowed to use their name, Fútbol Club Barcelona. They had to change their name to Club de Fútbol Barcelona, which is not a big deal. Maybe, you still have the same words, but going from Fútbol Club Barcelona to Club de Fútbol Barcelona was a hit because it was touching the main identity of the club, which was the name. And not only that, the crest, which has embedded the red and the yellow in the crest, that had to be removed. That had to be changed, and it had to erase anything that belonged to Barcelona, anything that belonged to Catalonia had to be erased from the history of the team. As we move on into the 1940s, in 1943 rolls around, and Barca faced Real Madrid in a semifinal of Copa del Generalísimo, which is also known as Copa del Rey today. Barca won the first leg 3-0, comfortable win, but the second leg was a little suspicious. Real Madrid won 11-1. To this day, not a lot of people speak about it just because there's something weird going on. And according to football writer Sid Lowe, he said this: there have been relatively few mentions of this game since it is not a result that has been particularly celebrated in Madrid. Indeed, the 11-1 occupies a far more prominent place in Barcelona's history. That was the game that first formed the identification of Madrid as a team of dictatorship and Barcelona as the victim. Think about how a soccer game dictated everything and literally put teams into place. An 11-1 victory from Real Madrid, right? A team that is from the capital of Madrid, a team that is identified with Franco. It's the 1940s. The Civil War has ended, but Franco's still in power. Franco still has the control of Spain. He's still making decisions. He's still dictating how things are happening in the country of Spain. And now on the down low, he's also dictating soccer games. As we saw, and you heard before, Barcelona won 3-0 comfortably the first leg, and then how do you explain an 11-1 victory from Real Madrid against Barcelona? I mean, I'm not saying that it cannot happen, but journalist Paco Aguilar claimed that the police treated Barcelona players in the changing room to lose, the police threatened Barcelona players in the changing room to lose that second leg. But nothing has really been proven of this story. The Paco Aguilar story, the journalist, hasn't been confirmed, but it does leave a lot of questions. And as Sid Lowe, the writer, he said, a lot more people in Barcelona remember the story than a lot of people do in Madrid. And it has something to do with the soul. It has something to do with, our guys don't move back. Our guys don't fight. They don't retreat in these fights. So there is no way that our guys went to Real Madrid and lost 11-1 when we beat them comfortably 3-0 in the first leg. It just makes no sense. So obviously there had to be something going on. And this is where they made their mark, saying, Barcelona, we are the victims of this regime, of this dictator, and he's using Real Madrid, as the oppressor. So that's also kind of weird to kind of think about, kind of crazy to think about how a football club could be, an oppression against another football club that represents a group of people in a group of, in a region of the country itself. Club de Fútbol Barcelona, still with his changed name, had some success in the 40s and the 50s. First time winning La Liga since 1929. They won it in 44-45, and then won again in 1948 and 1949. So there was a span of 15, almost 15 years that they didn't win anything, but they were able to come back late in the late 40s. They also won Copa Latina in 1949, a competition that had clubs from Spain, Portugal, France, and Italy. So that was a great accomplishment for them. At this point, we started seeing more international cups, competitions. Soccer, obviously, in the 1950s was growing. We had seen a few World Cups kind of gone by in the 1920s or in the 30s. And then obviously World War II happened. Everything kind of stopped for a little bit. And then the 50s, we started seeing soccer again kind of come back into the region. Now we're going to go into a side note, because something extremely important happened in the 1950s, or in 1950 specifically. In the 1950, Barcelona signed Laszlo Kubala. And you're probably thinking, like I was thinking, who is Laszlo Kubala? Who is this man? What does he have to do with anything? Who is this man, right? So Laszlo Kubala was a Hungarian-born football player. He played in Hungarian clubs, and also he played in Barcelona and Espanyol and just many different places. In 1999, for the 100-year celebration of the club, a poll amongst the fans declared Kubala the best player to ever play for Barcelona. Makes you kind of, think and wonder, what if this celebration was celebrated, 10 years afterwards? This little guy, Lionel Messi, was coming around, and, now people think of him as the greatest soccer player in the world. Obviously, they had in the 80s, they also had Maradona, but it's crazy to think that even with Maradona coming through in the 80s and other people coming in and out, as we're going to talk about in the future about another great player that they had, Kubala was still named the best player to have ever played for Barcelona. So it's just kind of crazy that me personally, I've never heard of Kubala until this research that I've been doing. And it just kind of caught my attention. So he also coached Barcelona in 2 different occasions, and even the Spanish national team. He ended his career with 280 goals and 345 appearances, including unofficial goals. And today, if you go to Camp Nou, there's actually a statue of Kubala outside of the stadium. So very interesting. So if you go to Camp Nou, if you go to Barcelona, and you happen to go to Camp Nou, and you want to take a picture, think about this story. Kubala, a player that came from Hungary, that played there, and in the 1950s, he became the best player ever to wear a Barcelona jersey. Obviously, not around the world, but just in Barcelona. Also, fun fact about Kubala, he played soccer here not in the United States, but here in America. In the Americas, he played in Toronto in the 60s for Toronto City and Toronto Falcon. So very interesting side note from our man Laszlo Kubala. So let's get back to it. Let's get back to the story of Barcelona and everything that's happening, because another incident happened in 1951. So right after this Laszlo Kubala comes into the picture, what I put down as the train accident or Amtrak train, whatever it is that they used back in the 1951s in Spain, the train incident of 1951. So it was a match between Barcelona against Santander, and there was a strike. There was a strike of the train workers against the government for some political reason. And the people coming out of the stadium, out of that match, refused to take the train and make themselves part of these train people, the train workers, the train group that was going against the government. They decided to kind of be with them, and as a hit to the government, everybody that went to the stadium that day decided to walk back home, no matter how far it was, that instead of taking a train. So imagine the stances that the people from Barcelona are taking. They're not minor. They're throughout their whole history, they're changing their language. They're singing songs in the stadium that go against the government. They're doing subtle things against the government that shows them, hey, we don't like you. We don't want you. We want to be our own people. And it's crazy because we're going to see it in the future, something that happened that almost made their dream come true. So talking about more in the 1950s, more titles were won. 1952, 1953, La Liga, Copa de Generalissimo, Copa Latina, Copa de Baduarte, Copa Martini Rossi in 1952, La Liga and Copa Generalissimo, which is Copa del Rey today, in 1953. So they kept winning. This team wasn't just, making political statements, but they were making statements on the field. They were winning cups and they were moving up. They were solidifying themselves as a great soccer team. Also around this time in 1957, Camp Nou, what we know today as Camp Nou, was finished. like we said, on one side of things is great. Now more people can come in. But also, what requires to build such a stadium? A lot of money. So unfortunately, during that time, there was a lot of spending of money. So 1950, between 1953 and 1959, there was a time where there wasn't a lot of players being bought, a lot of championships not being won. But in 1959, there was also a national double. So they won both cups. And in 1960, they won La Liga again and Fairs Cup. So now we go into another side note. The 1960s ushered a man named Luis Suarez. A lot of people, like myself, are probably thinking, wait, Luis Suarez? Like, he went back in time machine Luis Suarez? Like, the Uruguayan Luis Suarez? The guy that was part of MSN Luis Suarez? No. This is a different Luis Suarez. This is who we call Luis Suarez Miramontes, El Arquitecto, or Luisito, as they would also call him. For short, in a sense, even though that's a longer name. So Luis Suárez Miramontes, El Arquitecto, he played for Deportivo La Coruña, España Industrial, Barcelona, Inter Milan, Sampdoria. So he was literally one of those men that made a history, made a name for himself in Spain, because he also played for the national team between 1957 to about 1972. So he was around for a little while. He was widely regarded as one of the greatest Spanish football players of all time. Suarez was noted for his elegant and fluent style of play, and also regarded to be one of the greatest midfielders in the history of the sport. That's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that doing all this research, I'm learning new things about new players that I'm like thinking, man, these people should have a podcast episode of their own. And guess what? Luckily for you, in season 2, we're going to be tackling players more than clubs. So stay tuned for that as well. So he won Ballon d'Or in the 1960 edition. He was the first Spanish player to ever win it. So if you're ever wondering who was the first Spanish to ever win it, Luis Suarez, not the Uruguayan one, the Spanish one. He won the Ballon d'Or in the 1960. In the 1964, he helped Spain win the first European championship, beating the Soviet Union 2-1. So this man, El Arquitecto, was a great part of not only Barcelona history, but also Spanish history, winning, first Ballon d'Or for Spain, winning first European championship for Spain, and just a great name to have in your heart if you're a Barcelona player, a fan, or if you're a Spanish, national, then this probably is one of the guys that you regard as part of your history for sure. So let's get back to Barcelona. Let's get back to the team. Let's get back to the Culés, as they call them. In 1961, first club to beat Real Madrid in the European playoff match. That's also interesting. But unfortunately, they lost the final to Benfica in a 3-2 matchup. But now, I want to tell you a story within a story within a story within a story. We're going to talk about peak rivalry between Barcelona and Real Madrid. A few more cups were won after that, but something very meaningful happened in 1968. Let me set the stage for you. It's the final of Copa del Generalísimo in 1968. So what we know today as Copa del Rey. It's July 11th, 1968, 9 p.m., summer night in Madrid. 100,000 people in the stands in the Santiago Bernabéu. Think about that. Think about the scene. Put yourself in those shoes. Listen to the crowd. Antonio Rigo blows the whistle and the game is on. But wait. Let me tell you something that happened in the semifinal, because this is also going to blow your mind. So the semifinal was against Atlético Madrid, another team from Madrid, the capital. And people grew suspicious of the referee, of Antonio Rigo, because they thought that, he was leaning towards the Catalans, that he had some type of liking to them, and he wanted to help them out. And at the end, they did win. Barcelona went through to the final. And this match, funny enough, has been remembered, or will be remembered, as the match or the final of the bottles. And you're probably thinking, why is it called the final of the bottles? Well, because the fans of Atletico Madrid threw so many bottles onto the field that the game is mostly remembered for the bottles than anything else. But let's go back to the game. Let's go back. Barcelona, Real Madrid, Barcelona, a final. And guess what? A goal came in the form of an own goal by Sunsunegi in the 6th minute. But not only that, think about the explosion of the fans in the 6th minute. The explosion and also the silence. The silence of the people that went to go see Barcelona beat the Catalans, beat a Barcelona, beat the rebels, beat the ones that don't want to be part of this country. And think about this. In the bench for Real Madrid, their coach, Salvador Artigas, was a former pilot of the Republican side of the Civil War. This man literally flew planes against Catalonia, against Basque, against the people that were rebelling against Franco. Who knows? I'm just implying here, but maybe his plane carried things that were dropped on people. Imagine if you're a Barcelona player. Imagine if you're feeling that hate towards the repression and the dictatorship, everything that was brought to you, the destruction that La Guernica by Pablo Picasso describes and portrays. And you see a man on the bench flew a plane that was a pilot. And not only that, when you look into the crowd, the dictator is there. Francisco Franco himself, the man that put to death 500,000 people estimated on both sides, civilians, people that died of hunger, people that died of disease, people that had to go through winters with nothing. And this man that cost everything was on the stands watching as the Catalans took a title from the hands of Real Madrid back to Catalonia. Wild story. But let's get back to the story. In 1974, Francisco Franco reigned over Spain will end, and Football Club de Barcelona would change their name back to Football Club Barcelona. And they would bring back their original crest, and the flags will be back in the Catalonia region one more time. Now let's set the stage for the Flying Dutchman, El Flaco, El Salvador, a man that changed soccer forever. I called him the father of modern football, the root where all the branches of modern football come from. We're going to talk about Johan Cruyff for a split second here. This man obviously deserves an episode of his own, and he will get it. We will talk about a little bit about tactics. We will talk about a little bit of the things that he has done, how he has changed the game. Some people would say for better. Some people would say for worse. Some people would be indifferent about it. But the only thing that you have to agree on is that this man put his mark not only on Barcelona, but the world of football. So he was bought from Ajax in a world record transfer of 924,000 euros. Not only was he an amazing and established player, but he also won the Catalans through their heart. He did things outside of the field that just reminded Catalans of the love that they had for their country, the love that they had for their flag, and that other people could feel that love as well, as much as they had. This man, Johan Cruyff, picked Barcelona over Real Madrid. And when people asked him, hey, you had offers from both of them. What did you pick Barcelona? And he said, because I cannot be associated to anything Franco related. Anything Francisco Franco, the dictator, anything that has to do with him, I don't want to be associated with him at all. So where did he go? He went to Barcelona, the complete opposite of Real Madrid, the complete 180 of it. Another thing that he did that won the heart of Barcelonistas was that he named his son Jordi. So if you look at the crest of Barcelona, you have the red and yellow stripes on one side, and then on the left side of the crest you have the cross of Saint George, which is the local Catalan saint, right? George. So his name is son Jordi, after the saint. So imagine you are basically saying, I don't want to be associated with them, but I'm going to be associated with you so much, Barcelona, that I'm going to name my son after your saint, after your patron saint. This man knew how to win the people over. He knew how to bring the people to his heart and his heart to the people. And not only that, but on the field, he helped them win. He helped them win the league for the first time in 1973, in the 73-74 season, which was the first time they have won the league since the 1960 season. Imagine another 13-14 year drought, and this man was bringing a trophy home. Not only that, but Barcelona that year beat Real Madrid 5-0 in the Bernabeu to solidify themselves as a champion. Not only that, he won European Player of the Year in his first year. He also won his second Ballon d'Or. His first one, he won it in Ajax in 1971. And in 1974, he won his third Ballon d'Or. He was the first player of Barcelona to win 3 Ballon d'Ors. It is amazing. This man obviously was a great soccer player. This man has changed everything. We'll talk about him in another episode that will be just for him. But for now, I think we had to bring him because he was such an important part of Barcelona as a club, as a team, as a region, as a community that it had to be mentioned. Let's jump back into democracy. 1978 to the 2000 era. We're going to talk about a lot of championships here. We're going to talk about different things that happened. So Spain switched to democracy, or, they stopped that dictatorship. They went back to democracy in 1974, as we mentioned before. And also transfer to the Barcelona state of mind in 1978. When they elected their first president that year, in 1978, Joseph Luis Núñez. He was the start of that traditional democracy for the club Barcelona. 22 years of presidency under Núñez. Under him they won the first European Cup winners in 1979 against in Basel against Fortuna Düsseldorf in a 4-3 win, and it was a match that 30,000 fans traveled to go see. That's insane. Imagine moving 30,000 people for a final. That's crazy. But with that being said, it was the first European Cup's Winners' Cup, which is basically the Champions League of that day in the 1970s. Also in 1979, a great thing would happen for Barcelona. La Masia was born. This man, Núñez, bought a farmer's house that was later transformed to a dormitory for young academy players. As we know it today as the Mecca for the development of young players, and just, I could just start throwing names, but we're gonna be here all night, all day, all morning, all night, wherever you're listening. We're gonna be here all day just naming those players. In 1982, not only were they winning national championships, international championships, creating the future of the team, but they brought a young unknown guy, Diego Maradona from Boca Juniors, a world record transfer of 5 million euros. And not only that, but they brought him under the head coach Cesar Menotti, who won a World Cup with Argentina in 1978. So crazy stuff. Barcelona won Copa del Rey, beating Real Madrid once again, and Maradona would leave to Napoli in the 84-85 season. So he didn't stay long, but just, saying that you had players like Diego Maradona is crazy, right? But not everything was roses with Núñez. A lot of people, many fans and players didn't like him because at one point in time, he got a little bit too authoritarian and as a president, and would often bump heads with Núñez. All these people would bump heads with him. They didn't like the way that he ran the club at times because they felt like he was very too direct. Maybe a little, some would say a little bit too of a dictatorship. And, this is what the Catalans fought against their whole life. A lot of people were saying that these were bringing memories of Franco, a lot of stuff that happened. I mean, people still had the pain of Franco and everything that he had done in their region and their people and their families. So it wasn't too, it wasn't all just roses and everything like that. It was some bad times as well. But guess who returned to Barcelona in 1988? The return of Johan Cruyff. Now he returns as a coach, not a player. And he assembled somewhat of a dream team, some would say. Pep Guardiola, José Mari Vaquero, John Adnori Goicoechea. I can't really pronounce that name, but you guys probably know who that is. Miguel Angel Nadal, Tixki Begiristain, and he also signed international players such as Ronald Koeman, Michael Laudrup, Romario, Hristo Stoichkov. So great names in the football of that era, in the late 80s, early 90s, a lot of good names. They won 4 titles, the 91, 92, 93, 94, back-to-back. They beat Sampdoria once again in the 89 UEFA Cup Winners' Cup. They won Copa del Rey in 1990, and again in 1992 they won another European Cup, now in Wembley. So they are cementing themselves as a European powerhouse. European Cup and Super Cup in 1992, 3 Supercopa de Españas. Basically, the man Johan Cruyff, not only was he a serial winner as a player, but he was a serial winner as a coach. He won 11 trophies in 8 years as a coach. Amazing things that he did. Man is a legend. In 1996, 1997, Bobby Robson took over after Johan was let go after 2 years of not winning anything. So, as we say, you can be legendary, either you die as a hero or live long enough to die as a villain type thing. But Robson he brought in some random dude called Ronaldo Luis Nazario de Lima. As we know him today, Ronaldo, the original, the OG Ronaldo from PSV. They won the cup treble, another name worthy of his own episode, Ronaldo. So we're gonna talk about him someday as well. They won Copa del Rey, UEFA Cup winners, Supercopa de España. Ronaldo had 47 goals in 49 games. Honestly, this was a great time for a Barcelonista to be alive. Later on, Luis Van Gaal would come. He would bring Luis Figo, Patrick Kluivert, Luis Enrique, Rivaldo. They would win Copa del Rey and La Liga in 1998. In 1999, the century celebrations, they would win La Liga. And then Rivaldo winning the European Footballer of the Year. So not only were they winning as a team, as a squad, as a club, but they had players winning individual trophies for themselves. Madrid won the Champions League that year. So this led to Van Gaal and President Nunez to resign. So, as we said, not everything is all great roses and just great things happening. But none of these departures were really cared for. There was something that was happening around this time that made the people really, really mad. So let's take a second and think about this too. Luis Figo, a man that was loved by the people of Barcelona, a man that also represented a Portuguese man that came to Barcelona, that won the people over, that people said, this guy could be something. This man could be a legend for us and the Barcelonista hearts and minds. But unfortunately for Luis Figo, he decided to move to Real Madrid. It was insane. People were going insane. And the first game back that Luis Figo came to Camp Nou to play against Barcelona, it got so bad that even a pig's head was thrown on the pitch to basically tell them how they felt. You're nothing to us. You're a pig. You're a traitor. You stabbed us in the back. Luis Figo was one of the only great footballers that kind of went from a hero to a zero. Real quick in the hearts and minds of Barcelonistas. So unfortunately for him, it wasn't going to be good. But the modern times will come, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So the early 2000s will come around, not the greatest times for Barcelona. A revolving door for managers, not leading to much. A lot of presidents will come and go. But 2004 will roll around and a guy named John Laporta would win the presidency and he would take charge. He would bring Frank Rijkaard, or Rijkaard, however you guys want to say it. He was a Dutchman, an AC Milan star, and they would bring him in as a head coach. Not only that, but he would bring Ronaldinho, Deco, Henrik Larsson, Ludovic Giuli, Samuel Eto'o, Rafael Marquez, Edgar Davis. And then not only that, but they would combine him with players from La Masia, Spanish players too. Carles Puyol, Andres Iniesta, Xavi, Victor Valdés. So this was the return of success. And this was the return of success to the Barcelona identity. Barcelona won La Liga and the Supercopa de España in the 04-05. Ronaldinho and Eto'o were voted first and third, respectively, in the FIFA World Player of the Year awards. So, as we said, in the late 90s, this was also a time where, as a club, they were going forward, and individually they were going forward. 05-06 would be more of the same. They would win the league. They would win the Supercopa. And not only that, but something strange would happen in a strange game. But I don't want to tell the story without any context. So let me have you hear this, and then we'll talk about it in a second.
Salgado, abre para Ronaldinho que va a encarar a Sergio Ramos, ahí tiene todo el peligro del mundo. Ronaldinho se va por velocidad, Ronaldinho se va a meter, Ronaldinho, ¡golazo! ¡Qué fácil lo hace! ¡Qué fácil lo hace! Atención, el Bernabéu está de pie aplaudiendo a Ronaldinho. Esto no tiene parangón, yo creo, en la historia del Bernabéu. El Bernabéu está de pie aplaudiendo un gol del Barcelona. Ronaldinho es el autor del tercero. Volvió a sacar arte de la chistera. Ahora le da las gracias no solamente al cielo, sino también al público, porque está siendo un auténtico recital del Fútbol Club Barcelona.
So imagine how crazy that is. Barcelona, the hated rival of Real Madrid, goes to the Santiago Bernabéu, the temple, the theater of their dreams, for Real Madrid, for the Galacticos, the men in white, the men that are identified with the complete opposite of Barcelona. But you have this man, a FIFA World Player of the Year in 2005, and he will get a standing ovation from the Real Madrid fans. That is just insane. And that talks about the Ronaldinho heart, the Ronaldinho flair, the Ronaldinho skills. As we said, like many other players on this specific episode, Ronaldinho will have his own show, his own episode. So we'll leave it there. But to me, this was one of the pivotal moments of soccer, in the sense that when are you going to see your opposing fans clap for you? Insane, wild, but it happened. That same year, Barca will also come back from a 1-0 defeat with less than 10 minutes left to win a 2-1 game to lift the first European Cup in 14 years. So, crazy stuff still happening for Barcelona. Then we roll into the 06-07. It was a year to forget. Everything was going wrong. Then again in 07-08, just a lot of different things. After a 4-1 defeat against Real Madrid, Joan Laporta would announce that Barcelona B coach, some guy named Pep Guardiola, would take over Frank Rijkaard. And guess what? A new era will be born. A new era of soccer will commence. A new era of football will arrive. The tiki-taka is born, baby. Everything that we know till this point of soccer has changed. As some people, as we said, mentioned with Johan Cruyff, for the best, for the worst, whatever you want it. But Guardiola sold Ronaldinho and Deco, and he said the heart of my team will be Xavi, will be Iniesta, will be this kid named Messi. These are going to be where everything flows. All the balls will go through them, and through them everything will come. And guess what? He wasn't wrong. In 2009, Copa del Rey versus Atletico Bilbao, 4-1 victory. This was the 25th Copa del Rey for the club. Then, beating Real Madrid 6-2 and securing La Liga in 08-09. They beat Manchester United in Rome for their third championship to become the first team in Spain with a treble. La Liga, Copa del Rey, Champions League. Insane. In 2009-2010, they won the league with 99 points, setting a league record. 7 La Masia players. Remember about La Masia back in the older times? 7 of those guys participated in the final that won Spain their first World Cup in 2010, with Iniesta also being a Masia student, scoring the 1-0 of that game. So imagine how crazy La Masia was, that not only were they feeding players to Barcelona as a club, but they were putting Spain in an all-time high, giving them their first World Cup. Insane. That same year, 3 La Masia players were the finalists for the Ballon d'Or. Imagine that. As we continue talking about La Masia, Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, those were the 3 guys, were the finalists in Ballon d'Or. 2010-2011, they win the league for the 3rd time in a row. And then 2011 season, they beat Manchester United again. 3-time in Wembley. This time in England against an English team. 2011 Manchester United was a team, bro. Was a team. And Barcelona beat them. 4th European title for them. They also beat Real Madrid in the Super Cup in a match. And this actually matched the same number of trophies of Real Madrid. So imagine, they're getting up there. Real Madrid was beating them in trophies. They were accumulating trophies on the side, but Barcelona was coming back. In the same month, Barcelona beat Porto 2-0 in the UEFA Super Cup to bring their titles to 74. So this means that in a span of a month, they were under Barcelona. They were under Real Madrid. They tied Real Madrid by beating Real Madrid. And then they went and they beat a Porto 2-0 to surpass Real Madrid. Guardiola won 12 or 15 possible trophies in 3 years. He became the all-time record holder of most titles won as a coach in Barcelona history. Crazy. And then in December of that year, they beat Santos from Brazil in the Club World Cup, and this marked their 75th title as a club. This was considered the greatest team of all times. I don't think this like can come into my head. Hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying. This team was considered the greatest team of all time. That's wild. Think about all the teams that you have seen in your life. If you're 20, if you're 30, if you're 40, if you're 50 or 60 listening to this podcast. The greatest team of all time. Obviously, people will say other stuff, but they won the Laureus World Sports Award for Team of the Year in 2011, which was a trophy given to the best sports team of the year. So crazy. After the 11-12 season, Guardiola stepped down. He won 14 trophies total during his reign. And under Tito Villanova, they would win another league with 100 points, with only 2 losses the entire season. Crazy by Barcelona. Crazy. Tata Martino came in 2013-2014 season. Barcelona won a treble again, like they always do. In the 2014-2015 season, they won La Liga, Copa del Rey, Champions League, beating Juventus 3-1. The only European team to have won the treble twice. Fun fact. They were just, breaking records here and there. In 2015, beating River Plate from Argentina, they won their second Club World Cup. And this tied Al Ahly for, if I'm not mistaken, from they will also have their own episode in the near future. Al Ahly from Egypt with 20 international titles. Insane. Also setting a record with 180 goals in 2015 in all competitions. Most goals in a calendar year, beating Who else? Real Madrid, who had the record the previous year with 178 goals. This is insane. Like, when I'm reading through all these numbers, when I'm reading through all this soccer history, these people were literally breaking all the records that there were. Literally every single record that you can think of soccer-wise, Barcelona was killing it. Killing it. But guess what? 2017 comes around and we get political once again. So let's set the stage for this one. The 2017 Catalan independence referendum. In October 1, 2017, in the heels of Barca winning their sixth La Liga title in 8 seasons, in prime MSN, Messi, Suarez, Neymar time, and that's a whole nother episode of itself. There was a referendum question that kind of went out to the people, which voters answered either with a yes or a no. And the question was, do you want Catalonia to become an independent state in the form of a republic? So imagine what happened. I don't know if you guys remember. I remember this. I was alive. 2017, that was not that long ago from 2025 when we're recording this episode. But Catalonia decided to ask their people if they wanted to be an independent country, breaking away from Spain. The same Spain that they had helped win a World Cup trophy 70 years later, like not that long ago. Like, it was still fresh in their memories. I mean, people, Xavi, Iniesta, Messi, they were still playing, even though Messi didn't play for Spain. But, they came from La Masia, Carles Puyol. All these people were still around. They're still playing soccer. While the yes side won with 2,044,038 votes, which is the 90% voting for independence, and 177,000 voting against it, which was a 7.83%. The turnout was only 43%. So not all the Catalanes came out and voted. Only almost about half of the population, which half of the population was about 2 million people. And 90% of the 2 million people voted yes, we want to break off. So imagine the tumultuous time that happened. But the Catalan government estimated that up to 770,000 votes were not cast due to polling stations being closed off during the police crackdown. So I don't know if you guys remembered. I don't know if you guys want to go back and look at videos, but literally it was a whole ordeal. The Spanish government went and they started shutting down these polling places because they consider them unconstitutional. They said, if you go out and vote, you will get arrested. If you go out and you put a vote out there, this is not right. You guys cannot break off. They did everything that they could to keep Catalonia under the Spanish control. And at the end of the day, the civil court, the highest court, the Supreme Court of Spain, basically said, you know what, this has nothing to do, we're not even looking at this doesn't count, you guys have no power, you guys don't mean anything to us in a sense, your opinion in this matter, we don't care about it. So they basically just shut it down. Obviously it was a time where a lot of riots, a lot of people in the streets, a lot of stuff was going on in 2017 in Catalonia. And this was only about 10 years ago, guys. Like 8 years ago. 8 years ago this happened. So the Catalonia spirit is still alive and well. We talked about the 20s. We talked about the 30s. We talked about the 60s. We talked about everything that was happening with Franco and everything that went on through World War I, World War II, everything that happened. And in 2017, not that long ago, Catalonia still has the same mentality, still has the same sentiment. Barcelona, in the holding the utmost respect for its diverse body of members, will continue to support the will of the majority of the Catalan people and will do so in a civil, peaceful, and exemplary way. This is what Barcelona said when everything was going on. They said, you know what, we love everybody in our region. We're just gonna do what the Catalan people say, and we're gonna do it, in the best way possible. Obviously, they didn't want to get involved. They didn't want to get involved in all these, in modern times it's a little bit different. They still did say that they will support the will of the majority of the Catalan people. They did say that in their statement. So if anything would have happened, I think Barcelona literally would have become like the national team in a way. Obviously, you would have to be a Catalan national to play in it, but I'm pretty sure they could probably put a good team together of Catalanes to play in a national tournament like that. But moving on from that, from the 2017 Catalan referendum, we're going to move on to the 2017 and 18 season, which they won. So obviously, even with this tumultuous stuff going on, these kind of not dark times, but just kind of obscure times, they still were winning. They had the longest unbeaten streak of 43 games in La Liga history. So imagine, even in weird times as a region trying to separate themselves from a country, they were still winning titles. They went 43 games without losing. And then the next year, in the 2019 season, they won the 26th title of La Liga. But as we know, the 20s, the times that we live today, 2020 would bring dark times not only for the world, but as a Catalan, as a Barcelona fan, as a Club Barcelonista fan, player, lover, this would be some dark times for you, because things will be different. 2020 would be the first year without a trophy in 12 years. So imagine you're a Barcelona fan, you grew up with Barcelona, you win trophies 12 years in a row, and then 2020 comes around and crickets. Not one trophy, not a Copa del Rey, not a Champions League, not La Liga. Everything around you is winning titles except you. So in 2021, John Laporte would be back. The Laporte that made some great changes, he would be back. And he would find a club in ruins, even as they won their 31st Copa del Rey. 1.35 billion euros in debt, and a wage bill accounting for 103 of the total income. This is what Laporta came into. He was coming into a club that was in ruins. Imagine being $1 billion in debt. Obviously, whoever was managing the team was not doing a great of a job. They were killing the club slowly but surely through the inside. They were just bleeding it dry. And this led to some things happening. For example, Lionel Messi was reaching a contract year, and Barcelona was not able to comply with the financial fair play requirements of La Liga. So they would have to say goodbye to Lionel Messi, out of all people. After 21 years, the club all-time leading goal scorer, he was walking away on a free transfer to Paris Saint-Germain. Crazy. Like, just think about the craziness of a player that will get his own episode, Lionel Messi, that a player that signed his first contract on a napkin when he was a 11, 12-year-old kid, that moved to Barcelona, that was raised in La Masia, that became a part of the culture. This man has the Barcelona logo, the crest, tattooed on his leg. This man bled Blaugrana. And after 21 years, he had to walk away because the contract just wasn't there. They couldn't pay the man. It's crazy. It's crazy that it came to a point. Koeman, who was the coach, he would get the boot. And Xavi, a man known to the house, he was going to be the one to try and bring something, to put something together to Barcelona in this tough time. Unfortunately, wasn't able to do it quickly. And they were playing the Europa League for the first time since 2003 and 2004 season. So Barcelona was the equivalent, or was the synonym, of a Champions League. At this time, the Europa League, which is the secondary European competition, usually Champions League, if you guys don't know, Champions League is usually, as the name says, the champions of every league in Europe. So usually depends on the league, but most leagues is like 1, 2, 3, and 4. The first 3 teams or 4 teams on the annual table, the best 3 or 4 teams of each league compete in this. And then after that, if you're the 4th, 5th, 6th, then you compete in the Europa League. So it's like a secondary cup, right? For the teams that are not great, but not terrible, right? And Barcelona was in it. Crazy. And they would go another year without a trophy. But 2023 will come around, and Xavi would win the Supercopa de España after beating not other than Real Madrid themselves in a 3-1 matchup. And then on May 13, 2023, Barcelona clinched their 27th league title with 4 games to spare. So imagine, with basically a whole month and a half to spare, they were like, you know what, we're chilling, we're hanging out. And this was the first title that they won in the post-Messi era. So insane things. It's funny how we see things as post-Messi, pre-Messi, post-Messi type thing. The man literally changed Barcelona too in the world of soccer. But let's get closer to home as we try to get this. We're trying to land this plane now. We get to 2025. And it's another crazy year for Barcelona. They beat Real Madrid in the Spanish Super Cup to start the year. That's their 15th Spanish Super Cup. In April of 2025, once again, guess who they beat? Real Madrid in a 3-2 dramatic extra match, Copa del Rey. This was an insane match. It seems like Real Madrid had everything to win it, but Barcelona had the spirit. They brought the Catalan in them to not give up after the whole struggles that they've been through. And they pushed it through with Lamine Yamal, who I don't even know if he gets an episode. He is a child of himself. He is 18 years old, for God's sakes. This man is winning trophies for Barcelona at 18 like a true champion. And it's crazy. He basically, and Rafinha and all these other players threw the team on their back, and they won a 3-2 matchup, turning it around, flipping the game upside down, and this was their 32nd Copa del Rey for Barcelona. Insane things were happening. And not only that, to finish the 24-25 season, Barcelona would win La Liga once again. 28th La Ligas, 32 Copa del Reys, 15 Spanish Super Cups. A legendary club. And this, for you guys, is Football Club Barcelona. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. We will have more coming up next. Don't forget, guys, every badge tells a story. And here at History Football Club, we just scratched the surface. If you enjoyed today's journey through the football past, follow the show, leave a review, and share with someone who still believes in the beautiful game. My name is Cristian Putalias, and this is History Football Club, where football is history in motion.